Near mint condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves.
How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And backed by popular demand are the overviews of the weekly Marvel collected editions. That's right. Thank you all so much for asking when this segment was coming back. Well, look no further. It's coming back today. So join me. And welcome back, everybody. Before going any further, I do want to thank David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of these books. All of these books are due out in the direct market and book market on January 16th or 17th, depending on where you get your books. So, thank you all so much for sticking with me. It's been a few weeks since I've been able to do this, but I'm finally caught up with reading, and I decided to read some more. So, we are back with your weekly overviews of books coming out this particular week from Marvel Comics. We've got an epic collection. We've got a brand new Marvel Masterworks. This one's really exciting. We've got some new trades of new series, some Mighty Marvel Masterworks, a Marvelverse, and a new trade of an ongoing series, but maybe a mini-series. So, as always, in the description of the video, I leave timestamps so you can jump around in case you don't want to know anything about a particular book, you don't want any kind of spoilers, or you're not interested, and I understand that. But before you do jump around, don't forget to smash that like button, please. That goes a long way for us here on the channel, and it just means the world to us. Alright, let's go ahead and start today with, let's do the Mighty Marvel Masterworks Black Panther Volume 2. Alright, so the first book that we're going to be looking at is the latest Mighty Marvel Masterworks, The Black Panther, Volume 2. And we have the direct market cover over here by Big John Buscema, and the standard edition cover here by Leonardo Romero. And of course, they have different spines, and both of them have different backs. One being a limited edition of, let's see how many they have so far. 30, volume 30, my goodness. Just remember like it just started. Everything else on the inside is the same, so we'll take a close look here. And my kids are going through Silver Surfer right now, so we can read that book and talk about it and do a review of it, because I love doing those family reviews. So collected in here is Avengers 77 through 79, 87, 112, 126, Daredevil 69, Astonishing Tales 6 through 7, Fantastic Four 119, and Marvel Team Up number 20. Meaning that they are picking and choosing the stories that best represent the character of T'Challa. So in here we see him with the Avengers and just playing a big part of the team. You see the appearance of Manape, then you see of course the first appearance of Lynn, and you see the appearance of the Legion, a Lethal Legion. And then eventually you'll see Black Panther just kind of go out on his own, do little solo stories. This is the team up with Daredevil by Gene Colan, or the artwork at least is by Gene Colan. And we get to this particular issue, and in this particular issue, which is also the cover of the direct market, is the origin of T'Challa. This is the first time we've sat back and Roy Thomas decides to give us a look back at his story without missing a beat, going into details of how he became Black Panther, and of course the ties that he has to Ulysses Claw and the Kingdom of Wakanda and what happened to his father. This is really interesting. This is the stories, by the way, these have been collected in omnibus format, but this is the stories from Astonishing Tales. This one here shows him against Doctor Doom and is pretty much a big solo story. This is before he got his own series. This is when the Fantastic Four come to break him out of prison. This is where he goes back to Wakanda, and they have to fight off against the Lion God. But again, this is the stories that happened before there was a Black Panther series, the Marvel Team Up here with Spider-Man. So before there was a Black Panther ongoing series, there were just big story arcs that were done in the pages of Avengers and Fantastic Four. Here's some original artwork right here, including his original design for the costume, that of course later was changed. and then this right here. The book has 216 pages and retails for $15.99. Next up is Marvelverse, Miles Morales Spider-Man. So, not Miles Morales Ultimate Spider-Man, Miles Morales Spider-Man. And that's probably due to the fact that he's hanging out here in the 616 universe. And what the Marvelverse comics do, or these little graphic novels, are digest size. So they are smaller than your trade paperbacks. A little bit smaller in dimensions. But they're also a little bit cheaper. This one here is $9.99. So what they do is they work as a wonderful introduction to the character. So if somebody had just seen the Spider-Verse movie, or knows who Miles is from the video game and wanted to kind of catch up on the character, these are the best introductions for the character. As a matter of fact, this collects Ultimate Comics Spider-Man 1 and 2, issue number 5, and then Spider-Man 2016 1 and 2, written by Brian Michael Bendis and Sarah Pichelli, doing these beautiful, beautiful pages here. We're not just introduced to Miles, we're also introduced to his family, including his Uncle Aaron, who of course has his own secret and may have ties to Miles' origin and why Miles has these spider-like powers. So in here you're going to see his origin story, how he became Spider-Man or Spider-Boy at first, and then how he was accepted by his peers, mainly the people over at S.H.I.E.L.D., including Spider-Woman, and how he eventually got his costume. And then we'll see a little bit of the series here when the family is trying to adapt to a new life. I don't want to spoil what happens. We have this character right here of Blackheart, but it is a team up with Spider-Man, the Peter Parker Spider-Man. So all of this collected in 112 pages in this little package for $9.99. And that is the Marvelverse Miles Morales Spider-Man. Next up is the New Mutants Lethal Legion. This is the latest trade paperback in the New Mutants series. However, this collects New Mutants Lethal Legion 1 through 5, which is just a 5-issue miniseries. This book retails for $15.99 and it has 136 pages. But if you're a stickler for reading orders, this follows the New Mutants Volume 4 right here by Lore. And it kind of gets a little bit confusing because New Mutants was one of those titles that kind of got relaunched a couple of times depending on the creator. At least the trade paperbacks did. So if you're a stickler for continuity, this follows that series right there. As a matter of fact, it's got the same kind of trade dress that this does. Alright, so what is Lethal Legion? What's going on? Well, that's why I suggested reading those issues over there first. This is written by Charlie Jane Alders. Enid Balam is the penciler. Elisabetta D'Amico is the inker, and the colorist is Matt Milla. And in this 5 issues, you're going to see a character that was first introduced through those pages of New Mutants. So we're going to have some old classic New Mutants, like you're going to see Wolfsbane in here, and Warpath, and Moonstar, and Karma. But you also have new characters like Escapade. And Escapade plays a big part in this particular story. So this is... I love that they do this. They kind of give you a synopsis as to what's happened previously and who these new characters could be in case you're not familiar with them. But in here, you're going to have Escapade, Morgan Red, Cerebella, and then Scout are your main new characters, while your Wolfsbane and Mirage and Karma and Warpath are your old school New Mutants. And this is all in the aftermath of the whole Shadow King storyline. But in here, we have the character of Count Nefaria. And he's starting his own group of supervillains known as the Lethal Legion. So 2 of these new it's so ridiculous calling them that, 2 of these new mutants decide to infiltrate that group and try to get in. But they don't want to go in because they know they'll be recognized as themselves. So they want to go in secret identities. They want to go in as 2 different characters. And the mashup of these characters, when they pick their outfits, are just ridiculous. You can tell, hey, wait a second, that's Psylocke's headgear from Acts of Vengeance, things like that. So a little bit of Easter eggs here. But they do go undercover to try to infiltrate this group, not knowing that there's going to be a tryout for people trying to get into Count Nefaria's Legion. So it becomes almost like a game in a way. And you can see who ends up becoming his Lethal Legion. You can see how they get out of this particular mess, if the original New Mutants have something to do with it, or if the New Mutants get out of this mess themselves. This is all during the Krakoa era. All the way in the back are the covers. So we'll just go through some of these covers here. And then they do have some variant covers, like right there. And then where else to read? That is an homage cover right there to that New Mutants 98. And where else you can read the adventures of the New Mutants. Next up is Avengers Beyond. Now, if you watch our Marvel Solicit videos that we do every month, Peter, M, and I have been so excited for this book because we were big fans of the All Out Avengers miniseries. And that leads into this. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, if you've not read All Out Avengers, don't go into this, because I think you will benefit from reading that. As a matter of fact, there's a bit of a spoiler in this one. So I'm just going to go ahead and warn people, just spoilers going into this one. Minor spoilers, because, I mean, it happens in the first issue, but spoilers nonetheless. I think it was a great series. This one didn't disappoint either. But if you want to read it in whole, then get the All Out Avengers and then get Avengers Beyond. All right, let's go ahead and crack it open. And look, right there, right off the bat, you get the big spoiler. So, as a matter of fact, I think he's in the back, too. Yeah. This is the All Out Avengers series I was talking about. And all of it written by Derek Landy. Greg Land and Jay Laystein doing the artwork, with Frank Diamarta doing the coloring. So, in this particular story, the Avengers finally face off against this being that's been manipulating them for a long time. The ending of All Out Avengers is one of my favorite endings of a book last year. That was so awesome when Captain America kind of just breaks the fourth wall and he goes, "We know you're watching, and we're coming for you." And I thought, oh my gosh, please let there be a follow-up. And there was, and that's what this is. So the Avengers know that somebody's been watching them, somebody's been manipulating them, and the way that they work it out, because if you're being watched all the time, if you're being heard all the time, how could you possibly get the one up on that person? Well, the way they do it is freaking awesome, and I'm not going to spoil that. Now, what they managed to do is pull out the Beyonder, and the Beyonder is just pissed that they pulled him out. He's like, "You ruined everything," and he's still talking in like the narrative as if he's the one that's telling the story, and realizing that he's not. And what he does here is introduce us to the concept of, he may be an omnipotent being, but there's someone out there that could just destroy everything, and that is this being known as the Lost One. And the Lost One, he states, is coming for him, and he just was in hiding, and he explains why he was manipulating them. And this is all during the era of Jason Aaron's Avengers. Now, I don't know if this will be collected in a Jason Aaron omnibus, because it's not written by him, and I'd hate for anybody to just miss out on it. But we are seeing some characters here that appeared in the pages of All Out Avengers, and now there's a big fight. Everybody wants a piece of the Beyonder, and the Black Order is sent after the Avengers to go and fight and free the Beyonder. So whoever is manipulating the manipulator can have their way with him. And all I will say about this, the thing that surprised the hell out of me, wasn't the Black Order, wasn't the big Beyonder really reveal, because I kind of saw that coming. I'm just going to say two words because I want people to be surprised. Bootleg Avengers. That's all I will say. If you've read it, you know what I'm talking about. And I would love to know what people thought of the series if they have read it. I had a lot of fun with it. This one came really, really close to being my pick of the week. Oh, and it was a tough week, because this is the week I came back to read weekly comics again. And, man. But I had to go with something else. But let's look at the extras before I do talk about the next book. We've got some variant covers in the back, including the Scotty Young Beyonder cover. It's so ridiculous. And some of them are in thumbnails, and some of them are in splash pages. Collecting Avengers Beyond 1 through 5, 112 pages, and retailing for $15.99. And it has come to be that part of the video where we look at all the spines of the books coming out this week. And also a small reminder to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Alright, let's continue with the overview. Incredible Hulk Volume 1, Age of Monsters. This is the beginning of the Philip Kennedy Johnson series when he takes over the book. So this immediately follows up Immortal Hulk and then Hulk by Donny Cates and Ryan Ottley. So this is the next book to read. Now, do you need to have read those in order to enjoy this one? Not really. There are things that happen in those books that tie heavily here, but it's all explained here. The narrative is so good, it's easy to follow. But just in case, minor spoilers going into this one because of the pitch. Just in case, because we are talking about something that was shut in the pages of Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk. Okay. For those of you that don't care, here we are. Because even when I'm speaking in code, like something that was shut, like, what do you shut? Your trap? Or a door? We are talking about the green door. As a matter of fact, this little bit right here kind of catches you up to speed. So it talks about how in previous volumes, and mainly the Al Ewing run, the green door was shut. Now that doesn't really spoil anything. You can find out what that is as you're reading it. I'm not going into the whys and hows or anything. I'm just letting you know that the door has been shut. And when that green door was shut, a lot of the monsters are now awakening here on Earth. Now, do the monsters have ties to the green door or what came from the green door? Well, you can just read to find out. So it all starts a year ago in Iraq, where these tomb robbers are breaking into this particular tomb that they're expecting treasures and things like that. And what they find is a decapitated giant monster. And this young lady picks up this skull that she's like, oh my gosh, this was a child. And she turns around and says, the green door is shut. And she goes through this change where this monster just rips out of her skin. This, by the way, is rated Teen Plus, just mainly due to the violence and some of the imagery you're going to see through here. Because I will say, the way Hulk transforms through here, and going from Bruce Banner to Hulk and Hulk to Bruce Banner, it looks painful. It reminds me of why I love American Werewolf in London. That transformation of the bones popping and cracking. Oh, it's so good. I love it. And Nick Klein's art through here is just top notch. So we see Bruce Banner. He's in Estill County, baby, Kentucky. I've actually been there. I've not been to Jack's Diner. Don't know if that's a real place or not. But he is in Kentucky for the first couple of issues where he's just running away. And he looks scared because Bruce Banner always looks scared. And he said he's going to wake up. He's coming after me. He doesn't have time to even get his change. He just keeps running because he has these visions of the Hulk. And then he blacks out. And when he wakes up next to a carcass of an animal. He wakes up to see that the restaurant he was just in has been destroyed and burnt to the ground. And of course, the authorities are looking for him. Now, we also meet a new character. This is a young lady named Charlie who lives with her father, and she's trying to repair her grandmother's car. She just wants to get out of town with her friend. Her father catches her, and it looks like, yeah, he does abuse her. So there are things in here about child abuse. So if that kind of stuff isn't for you, then this may not be the book for you, and I would definitely skip it if you can't stomach things like that. Then we see the lady that was there at the beginning during the tomb expedition show up with somebody. That's this person right here plays an important part later on in a hood, and then these big strong guys right here, and they keep looking for the Hulk. Now they keep calling her the Elder, and she seems to be talking in riddles, talking about how, you know, they're here for their father. And I'm sorry, she's known as the eldest, and she's waking up these creatures that are inside of these human beings. For example, this one right here, and they're going after the Hulk. They're going after the monster. They don't want Bruce Banner. They just want the Hulk. So these agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it looks like, maybe agents of Stark, because they're saying, hey, Tony Stark wants you back. They're all pinning Bruce Banner down, and they're trying to get him back. And this is how he transforms. He's like, no, you need to leave now. And one of the soldiers is like, oh man, screw this, maybe we should leave. And the other guy's like, no, we got to take him in. So this is how he transforms from Bruce Banner to Incredible Hulk. I love the cracking. I love just, it's almost like the monster is inside of him physically and metaphorically, which there's a lot of that in here. And his artwork, Nick Klein's artwork, really reminds me a lot of what Mike Deodato Jr. was doing on the book, especially when you see like veiny arms like this and faces like that. And there's nothing wrong with that. He was one of my favorite artists on Hulk. He's a phenomenal artist, and this is just as good. But I also don't want to say that it's just like Mike Deodato Jr., because he does his own thing, because his art is just stellar. He did an amazing job in the pages of Thor, and in here, he's just killing it. His art is actually a big part of what makes this book so creepy, and a big part as to what makes this book my pick of the week. That's right. This was my favorite read this week, and it was a tough choice. It was either this, Avengers Beyond, or the Daredevil book, which I'll get to here in a second. But this was just such a fun and quick read. I read it twice just so I didn't miss anything. And there's all kinds of things that are thrown at you that I missed the first time. So the eldest is trying to find the Hulk. Now, you do get the answer towards the end, what kind of deal she's trying to make with him. There are other creatures that are being woken up, though. Now, we end up in Florida later on, after they leave Kentucky, where these monsters are underground and the Hulk has a huge giant fight. These issues right here are drawn by Travel Foreman. They're not drawn by Nick Klein. These are the two issues in the back that are drawn by Travel Foreman when they go to Florida. And here Bruce is just trying to leave Charlie, because Charlie is just determined to stay with Bruce Banner / the Hulk. She doesn't want to go back home. She was abused by her father, and something ends up happening between her and her father that she can't go back home. So she does end up kind of staying with him. She's like, hey, look, Captain America has Bucky. You maybe the Hulk needs a sidekick, and that's what I can be. And the Hulk actually has a soft spot for her, but Bruce Banner's like, get the hell away from me. You have no idea what's going to happen. You can't assume you're going to turn into a monster like the Hulk just because you're hanging around me and I'm going to give off radiation to you. There's something dark that happens in this story that ties back to her and her history, like in her past, what's maybe could have happened to her brother. And it gets really dark, and the monster that's in here kind of awakens that past in her. And it's done really well while Hulk is fighting. Yes, that's right. He's fighting Ted down here. He is fighting Man-Thing. And Man-Thing knows, he feels something because he's connected to the Nexus, right? So he feels like something is awakening all the monsters. And something is calling to the Hulk. And Hulk's like, just leave me alone, Ted. Love it. And it ends on a big cliffhanger. You can find out for yourself what I mean by that. I don't want to go into any more details and spoilers. The annuals collected in here. So here are the first 5 issues of Incredible Hulk and the Hulk Annual number 1. The book has 168 pages and retails for $19.99. And the annual is written by David Pepose, and this is pretty much just a crew that's going around trying to tell the documentary of the Incredible Hulk and going to all kinds of trouble trying to find video footage or film video proof that he's out there, which is really weird because we live in the age of internet, and I'm not sure how, or social media, how somebody wouldn't have already gotten footage of the Hulk after all these decades. But that's what they're trying to do. And it does have an epilogue that ties to the main story too. So I will say it is important to read. And then in the back, you get the bio on the 2 big monsters that play a big part in the story. And you get the variant covers in splash pages and in thumbnail pages. The Amazing Spider-Man Epic Collection, Volume 27. My goodness. The Clone Saga. Now, if you think, hey, I already have the classic Clone Saga trade paperback, the ones that were called the Spider-Man, what was it called? Clone Saga Epic, I think. They were separated into 6 Epic collections and then 5 of the Ben Reilly ones. The mapping in here is different. So let's talk about that. In here is collecting the pages of Web of Spider-Man 117 to 119, Amazing Spider-Man 394 to 396, Spider-Man 51 through 53, Spectacular Spider-Man 217 to 219, Spider-Man Unlimited number 7, and then it's got the clone subplot pages from the previous volumes. 456 pages, $44.99. So immediately if you have those old classic ones, the things that are not collected in here are the Lost Years, for example, or that one shot that kind of kicks off what happened or where Ben Reilly was. So keep that in mind, it's mapped differently. And we kick it off with these little subplot pages that kind of give you a synopsis as to what's happened lately in the pages of Spider-Man. What's going on with Peter Parker, because after he found out from the previous volume, there was a big revelation from his past, and it's kind of taken a toll on him. Aunt May suffers a stroke, and Mary Jane cannot get a hold of her. Meanwhile, somebody keeps calling the house that sounds like Peter, and she's like, Peter? And the guy's like, oh no, I'm sorry, it's not. So as the subplot pages continue, and this is really interesting because we don't really have that in Epic Collections. Usually in Epic Collections you get the whole thing, the whole single issues. But it's just the subplot pages that introduces us to the clone, Ben Reilly. So what ends up finally happening is Peter Parker does come and see his aunt, and, you know, he has a meltdown. Like, he breaks down finally because of all the things that just have been going through his life. And during this time, he was just calling himself the Spider instead of Spider-Man. And that leads into the confrontation of power and responsibility. So this is the big final confrontation of Spider-Man and his clone. And the clone, he immediately thinks, oh, okay, this is the same clone that happened years ago with the Jackal and the whole thing with Gwen Stacy. How is this clone still alive? So that just opens up this can of worm. You have the return of the Judas Traveler here with his gang that just complicates the hell out of this story. And again, Peter Parker not being a lot like himself. You know, he's gone through a lot lately. He's had to gain and lose people in his life all over again. So that's what the power and responsibility issues are, introducing us to the concept that there's somebody else out there that has the same powers, and it could be the original clone of Peter Parker. Meanwhile, the Judas Traveler is just kind of playing everybody. This is the Birth of Spider-Man issues right here, and a lot of this drawn by Liam Sharp. J.M. DeMatteis writing these stories, and just talking about the concept of the clone and how he might have come about. And then we get the Exile, which the Exile Returns to me was a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed this. Every time I go back and reread the Clone Saga, you know, because Clone Saga gets a lot of hate. But for some reason, it's sold out, and then people wanted it reprinted, so go figure. Maybe everybody just wants to read it for themselves. And I always urge people to do that. But this is a lot of fun. This kind of reminds me of... Wait, I actually like the Clone Saga at the beginning. I think what ends up happening, though, is just the story overstays its welcome. But this is the first time, like, you see Ben Reilly go out on his own badass self, like, just he made this costume all by himself. Kind of like the original Peter Parker did, right, in Amazing Fantasy 15. He makes his own costume, love that hoodie. And his first real supervillain he has to fight is none other than Venom. And this is at the height of Venom's popularity, too, in the Marvel Universe. And he ends up just kicking the crap out of Venom, and you can find out how. We have the return of Cardiac right there, one of my favorite underrated characters. And then we have the fight against the Puma. So the crossover begins, and when people ask me, how long is this going to last? How long is the Clone Saga going to be in epic format? Ooh. It's gonna be a few volumes. I want to say probably like 8 volumes of just the Clone Saga. And then we still need like maybe one more epic collection to wrap up the first volume of Spider-Man. This is the team up with Daredevil against the Owl and the Vulture. Everybody looking a lot different. It is the 90s, looking a lot edgier, including the Vulture. And then the character designs here in the back. So this particular book, like I mentioned, has 456 pages. So the stuff in here has been collected before in a trade paperback, but this mapping is a lot different. And it's been collected in an omnibus format. And we got a lot more to go of the Clone Saga. So buckle up. Last but certainly not least is the Daredevil Marvel Masterworks Volume 18. So we are now out of the Frank Miller era. As a matter of fact, this is the beginning of the Dennis O'Neil era. And again, under the dust jacket, printed at the Donnelly printer. don't really do a lot of Omnis these days. I'm going to say the Masterworks are the big thing they have been doing. Writers up here: Dennis O'Neil, Ralph Macchio, Alan Burnett, and Steve Grant, Klaus Janson, William Johnson, George Perez. The pencilers here. And your inkers, Klaus Janson, who also colored some of the issues in here. Mike Mignola inking issue 197. Love that. Joe Sinat, Jack Abel, just to name a few of the inkers. Your table of contents right here. And your introduction by Ralph Macchio. Just reliving those days. I mean, Ralph has been a big part of the comics industry for decades. He's been around for so long as assistant editor and, of course, editor. And writing about how he remembers those particular days at the Marvel office, and how Dennis O'Neil came out of being an editor and just decided to start writing the stories. But there's a couple fill-in issues before we get to the Dennis O'Neil era. I absolutely love this issue right here. This is issue 192. So immediately after Frank Miller left, and you all remember that big cliffhanger. So this collects Daredevil 192 to 203 and the material for Marvel Fanfare 7 and 10 through 13. $75, 382 pages. This one here is written by Alan Burnett, who came in and just did this particular issue. All of this inked, penciled, and colored by Klaus Janson. Just crazy. And then, of course, Joe Rosen, one of my favorite letterers of all time, did the lettering here. But what this is it focuses on the characters of Ben and Doris, and all the things they've been through, and how they're living in just the most nastiest conditions. Like, she can't keep the dishes clean because there's roaches that crawl all over her dishes as soon as she washes them. So, Daredevil tries to help them out, and they finally are able to get a loan to put, like, all they need is like 10% down to get into this house. And Ben promises Doris that, we're going to get it. We're going to get our house. All we need is 10% down. He's about to write this story and crack this story on this past editor that had been just pretty much writing stories and working for the mob on the side. And I think it's such a powerful story, and it showcases exactly why we love the character of Ben, who is a big supporting cast of Daredevil. Then we get the Larry Hama issue here. Again, Klaus Janson inking, penciling, and coloring these issues, or this issue right here. And that one right there, Daredevil can't even go on a cruise. And then we get the first Dennis O'Neil issue right here. And again, Klaus Janson drawing this one, as well as the next one here. But what this is probably known for are the next 5 issues that kick off with issue 196. So now Larry Hama's doing some of the breakdowns. Dennis O'Neil, of course, he keeps drawing these issues, or writing these issues, and Klaus Janson does the finishes. The team up with Wolverine. This is when they first meet. And what's happening here is somebody called the Dark Wind is trying to get the character of Bullseye out of the hospital to take him to Japan. And as you find out why they're trying to take him to Japan is because they're trying to rebuild his broken body, and this guy right here, and make Bullseye be his own personal assassin. So that's what these issues are. It all kicks off with this Wolverine team up. It was one of my early issues of Daredevil that I got because of Wolverine. And yeah, Daredevil ends up going to Japan and meeting this young lady named Yuriko. And of course, over here, he's got to deal with the Yakuza. And back to the character of Yuriko. Now, if you read X-Men, if you read Wolverine, you may be familiar with that name, but that is where she makes her first appearance through the pages of Daredevil. This young lady right here, who will later show up, of course, in Alpha Flight, who will later show up in Uncanny X-Men and the pages of Wolverine, and she will become one of his biggest arch nemesis. As a matter of fact, she's still around to this day. Now we have William Johnson drawing the issues after Klaus Janson decides to leave, and again, Daredevil all the way in Japan. And by the way, how they fix Bullseye's spine and body, it's pretty interesting. And I'll just say his bones are never the same. So there's a big fight in issue 200. As a matter of fact, this cover right here, the one that they use for the Marvel Masterworks, I just wanted to come here because it's just a little bit bigger. But it is penciled by John Byrne and inked by Terry Austin. And it is just a brutal battle because we know what Bullseye had done in the past, and we know how Matt feels about his arch nemesis. But what is he willing to do this time around? Foggy grows a mustache era. This is the character of Micah Sin. And that's his first appearance right here. And then, of course, the pencilings of William Johnson. Now, this is written by Steve Grant, this particular issue, and then Jeff Isherwood is the artist. And this is the first appearance of this villain known as Trump. And he gets his name from being a really good bridge player at prison. That's where he gets the super villain named Trump. All the way in the back is where we're going to get some of the... Oh, wait. Yeah, right here. The Marvel Fanfare issues. So Black Widow, being a big part of the supporting cast of Daredevil, finally starts spinning off and getting her own kind of solo stories. George Perez drawing these particular issues, just wonderfully drawn. These have been collected before in the Black Widow Strikes Omnibus, and written by Ralph Macchio. These particular issues, and Daredevil may show up, may guest star through here. Love that cover right there by Arthur Adams. But it is mainly George Perez drawing these, and then Ralph Macchio writing the stories. And then in the back, we do have some original page art, an interview with Klaus Janson. You have the introduction here of the Black Widow Web of Intrigue, and then Web of Intrigue cover, the trade paperback. And then the Black Widow Strikes standard edition cover, and then the bio right there on all the wonderful creators. 392 pages. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these books. Let me know in the comments down below which ones you are picking up, which ones you're most excited for, what your pick of the week would have been just by looking at the pictures and the pitch for the books. And if you have any other questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.